What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about Opendoor. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So Friday was a complete gong show, caused Opendoor to go down 7%, even after hours hitting a low of about 701. So crazy stuff. In case you missed it, what really prompted that was Trump coming out saying that he's thinking of increasing tariffs on China, which a couple hours later he did actually put that in force 100%, and he's kind of arguing with China about rare earth minerals. And so in this, initially it was saying that he canceled his meeting for next week. That turns out was not accurate, but still the tariffs being set at 100% is a very real just fear. And the market, I think, generally going into even what happened was very jittery. And so I think right now we were waiting for our next big catalyst, and we could have actually had it, because I've done many videos on Opendoor where I talk about what could really impact that. And Opendoor's business is very sensitive to interest rates. So ideally, we want a lot of labor-linked data, because of course that's one thing that Powell really mentioned was going to prompt rate cuts. But because of the whole shutdown, we haven't had those key data points. Even looking forward into this upcoming week, it's going to be a crazy week, mind you, because we have a huge amount of Fed speakers, even yours truly, Powell, on Tuesday, but all the key labor data is still paused, again, because of the whole shutdown. So at the end of the day, Opendoor is kind of just stuck in limbo. There hasn't really been all that much in official news from Opendoor, nor any SEC filings. So it's been largely at the mercy of the broader market. Plus, we've been also seeing relatively low volume. So that, of course, opens up Opendoor for a lot of manipulation. But starting off, though, with some data points, like I said, we have a lot of Fed speakers throughout the week, so that could cause some volatility. Thursday, we have the manufacturing index, so the Philly Fed manufacturing index. Current forecast for that is 4, but you can even see almost every single day we have about at least 4 Fed speakers, so that's going to be a pretty crazy one. All of these data points, which would really normally impact the market, they're paused. So PPI, retail sales. One thing as well, I think they did kind of mention was that CPI was still going to be released, but I think that was just kind of put out there, nothing concrete. And then we do have, for instance, on Friday, industrial production, but that's pretty much it. As far as companies unveiling their earnings, this could cause the market to move. So we have a lot of the big banks right here, TSM. So a lot of big names are starting to unveil their earnings. So going into earnings season, I think this could be potentially the saving grace, but nonetheless, a lot of people want to know if Friday's fear is going to roll over into Monday. And in my opinion, I don't think so. Only because I cover quite a few different stocks. I have probably around 7 different YouTube channels, and not all that get a lot of attention. But ultimately, I do look at stocks a lot throughout the day, a lot of different data points. And one very common scenario that did happen on Friday was a abnormally high amount of algorithmic trading. So you can even see it based on the smaller transactions. In Opendoor's case, algos were really dictating where Opendoor was going. So of course, with them sensing the Trump's news and signaling that was bad, they were adding a massive amount of pressure across the board. And in Opendoor's case, especially with it being a momentum play, if you're not getting that institutions buying, you're going to get slaughtered. No different than the broader market. So in general, I do feel a lot of that fear was artificial. Might be unpopular opinion, but it is what it is. So in my opinion, I do feel that we will have a nice little bit of a recovery come Monday, and then technically Tuesday onwards, depending on what the Fed speakers say and everything else, that most likely will dictate where the broader market does go. So I know I did talk on quite a lot of things in the 4 minutes, but everything is going to potentially be able to impact the broader market. One thing to take note of though is that 𝗪𝗂 did post this on the 10th, so saying that they pretty much hired a lot of key roles. So we do know about Morgan Brown because I brought that up in a previous video, Brad, and also Jiang, if I'm saying that right. So Jiang comes from Shopify, and it looks like Brad from, it looks like becoming Opendoor's chief business officer, and it doesn't say where they came from, but Morgan came from Dropbox. So I think in general, good stuff. Is this a reason to buy Opendoor? Not so much. But potentially their upcoming earnings could be, but that's kind of going to be a year away, essentially, what it feels like, even though it's only a month. But going into this upcoming week, 21.66% of the free float is being shorted, works out to be 153.6 million shares overall being shorted. So shorts have really doubled down recently, so anticipate them to be very active this upcoming week. The fact that they also did return on Friday does signal that the push lower, in their opinion, was not justified. From a bull standpoint, you do see a consensus for it to be roughly around that 850 and above. From this, from the bear standpoint, you do see a consensus for it to be kind of between that or sub 7 to 750. So a little bit more upside is anticipated. This is all the open interest. So with it closing at 757, that does mean that the 750 and below strike prices are considered in the money, but you have very low amount of open interest, so that won't cause any bump up. This forward, looking forward into this upcoming week, it is a monthly chain, so it is a little bit more active. So just take a mental image of this. So you have some big walls at the $8 strike price, 24,000, at the $9 strike price, 52,000, at the $10 strike price, 75,000, and then at the $11 strike price, 47,000. So if potentially Opendoor does get to a lot of those key points by, let's say, next Friday or close to the second half of the week, you could see shorts wake up, try to manipulate it. So again, something to keep in mind. With it right now at 757, just to give you a quick overview, we're going into this upcoming week kind of on flat feet, if that makes sense. So we are trading between this S2 and this S3. 718 followed by 612 is going to be support levels, and then 758 followed by 783 is going to be the next strong target / resistance point. I see a lot of people online very negative about Opendoor and just generally the broader market, and I feel like that's, like I said, premature. It's just, that's the problem about heavy retail presence stock, is that you sometimes play with too much emotion. If all you do is look at the data, interpret that, which is what I do, nothing really phases you, because yeah, you're just following the data. So I don't believe Opendoor or the broader market is down and out just yet. Of course, I think one thing to take note of though is this. So for instance, it was disclosed on October the 9th that $19.84 billion left crypto and also the equity markets to go back to money markets. So right now there is a grand total of $7.39 trillion sitting in money markets. So the reason why they're sitting there is because they are fearful about the broader market. And this is why we've seen less and less volume in the broader market. So again, something just to keep in mind. Aside from all of that, looking forward into this upcoming week, we are below that 10-day moving average. So it does signal that we're losing a little bit of momentum. Looking at Friday, the market position, you see a little bit of a gap. So not really that strong of willing buyers up until potentially around that 675 mark. So we could see a little bit of a consolidation there. We do have a lot of willing sellers right there. So I think generally the market recovering, and if Opendoor has something in their back pocket, such as news or whatever else, that could cause a nice push higher. Going into this upcoming week, based on the stochastic RSI, we are very oversold. So again, I feel that we might have a little bit of a further consolidation to, let's say, that 675 mark, but I do feel that Friday's push lower, and even this upcoming week, there's a lot of big opportunities for Opendoor to really move higher. Let me know your thoughts on all that, or if you completely disagree. I'm open to hearing different interpretations of all that. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon, link in the description below and also the comments. I put out daily day trades, multiple swing trades. Worthwhile to pop over there and check that out. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.